Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Inside the OC. My name is Matt Canizaro, and we've got another exciting episode for you today. It's going to be a one-man show, just two bowling fans, two bowlers having a conversation today. So we won't waste any time with just me here chatting. Let's bring in today's guest. She's the 2019 Standard All Events champion at the USBC Open Championships. A family legacy at the Open Championships that goes back more than 5 decades. Here she is now, Jenny Wonders. Jenny,
Yay.
Welcome to the show.
Hi.
How are you today?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
All right, well, good. We appreciate you joining us today. Certainly a lot to talk about, whether it be about your performance last year in Las Vegas, about your family history at the Open Championships, or about life or parenthood there in as far as where you guys are right now. So definitely a lot to cover. Generally, we'd start the show by talking to our guests about what the last few months have been like in COVID-19 and the craziness. But I would like to talk about the last couple of weeks for you have been pretty phenomenal. So no matter what happened in the months leading up to it, it sounds like it's been a pretty good few weeks. You had a birthday. Some other big things in life happened, and now you're traveling the country. You're coming to us from an RV in Tennessee. So let's start with an upside, really positive things happening. Tell us about the last few weeks of your life.
So my birthday was August 2nd. I'll start with that. And my birthday present this year from my significant other, Todd, was... I almost said boyfriend. I can't say that anymore. He's my fiance. So Todd asked me to marry him, and I said yes. So that was very exciting. And then a few days after that is when we got in our RV to take it on its first trip since we've gotten it. And we went to a bowling tournament for Todd in Indiana and spent a weekend there, and then came from there down here to Tennessee. And we're staying really close to Gatlinburg, Tennessee. So we spent an afternoon in downtown Gatlinburg on Tuesday. And yesterday we were up to a place called Klingman's Dome. Yeah, Klingman's Dome, which is the highest point in both North Carolina and Tennessee. And you have to do a half-mile hike up to get to the observation deck. And our pictures and videos don't do justice to how steep that grade was. We actually gained 330 feet of elevation.
Nice.
But it was totally worth it. So we're having a really good time. And today had a little pool time this morning before I came in and got ready for this. So yeah, it's been a fun couple of weeks for sure.
So first, congratulations on everything, and obviously the recent engagement, and happy birthday and all that good stuff. Now, in the perfect world, this time of the year, you'd be out there supporting Todd on the PBA 50 tour. That is, of course, the reason for the RV was so that you could take the cats and the dog with you and be on tour and be supportive and be comfortable at the same time. But luckily, with this crazy year and everything happening, you got there just in time. You got the RV and decided, obviously, to take it on the road and now get to see the country a little bit more. What else do you guys have planned, especially now that it's up in the air as far as when bowling really is going to resume for the PBA 50 guys? But you're certainly taking advantage of the opportunity and the new purchase.
Yeah, so Todd actually does have 2 tournaments in the next couple of weeks. One in Bowling Green and one in Jasper, Indiana. So we're going to be in Tennessee till Sunday, and then we're going to go up to Lexington, Kentucky, and spend a little bit of time in horse country up there. And from there, we'll go to Bowling Green or Ohio first. From there, we'll go to Ohio, and then we'll go to Bowling Green, and then we'll be back home around the first week of September.
There's a little look at the family, Jenny and Todd, and the youngins, right?
Yep, that's my horse, whose name is Nari, and our dog Lacey.
Well, very, very cool. That the things that you guys were able to experience, and for you, of course, we're here to talk about the fact that you are a standout bowler as well, and then some of the things that you've had to overcome in your life. So I imagine now, turning it back just a few months to March and COVID-19 and everything getting crazy with your health situation, and certainly let's hear more about that. But it has to be a pretty scary time for you, I would think, and some precautions that you personally have to take that may be different from the rest of us. But as far as that part of the year and what's going on in the world, what has that been like for you? And really, where has bowling fallen into your thought process during all of this?
So in the beginning, it was definitely very concerning, the COVID-19 for me personally. I do have systemic lupus, and I take several medications that kind of compromise my immune system. But what I learned from my rheumatologist, which I actually didn't, is that viral infections and bacterial infections kind of act differently in the body. And with something bacterial, I would be severely compromised and at very, very high risk of not only getting it, but getting very sick and possibly dying if I got it. With something viral, I'm actually not at any more risk than anybody else. And I already take the highly controversial medication, hydroxychloroquine, is I take lupus. And that are in my system, but I'm at a lower risk than people my age.
Okay.
So I'm not so worried anymore. I didn't know much about it. Definitely very to a halt, and we were fortunately my father still in Racine, Wisconsin, so there once a week and practice. Nobody else. So we were able to continue bowling throughout the majority of the shutdowns, and now things in the last month and a half kind of started to open up around us, and we were bowling a sports shot series tournament every Sunday in Machesney Park, Illinois. So it's definitely not quite at the forefront of our lives like it normally is, but we were fortunate to be able to continue to at least throw the ball.
Okay, well, as everybody knows, you were preparing for a title defense at the Open Championships. You won, again, standard all events last year in Las Vegas, so you were gearing up to come back and do it again in Reno. And then, of course, the event got postponed and then postponed again and then eventually canceled. How much preparation and how much thought had already gone into getting back to the OC generally? And there's a picture of you with the Eagles there, and we'll talk a little bit more about that gentleman in the photo with you as we get rolling. Big smile from you, of course, knowing how much that means to you and the family. Looking forward to hearing more about that. But I imagine as much as the OC already meant to you in your life growing up around it like that, to now be a part of the history and to be able to win and Eagle and share that moment and share in the legacy. Tell us about that. We'll just dive right into it. Certainly the prestige and what that means. Just take us back to 2019 and finally hearing that you were a champion at the Open Championships.
Okay, so where do I start? I'll start way at the beginning, which is Todd's group of bowlers. He had two teams that go out together, needed a bowler, and so I was brought into the group to be on the B team, the second team. And just within months of when we had to go bowl, we had a couple guys drop out of the group that were on the A team. And Todd kind of went to bat for me with their group and said he wanted me on that team, their A team. And so I got moved up, and all I could think of going out I don't want to look like an ass because I'm like my then boyfriend. I'm like, he just, kind of went to bat for me and stuck up. And I want the rest of the guys to be like, oh yeah, Todd had to have a girlfriend bowling, and look at, she did terrible, So I was focused because I didn't want that to be the case. And so we got up there. Then I actually had not bowled the OC 2016. So I was not aware of exactly how the divisions had changed since then. I didn't even know I was in the standard division until I went to get into brackets, and they told me I signed up in the wrong division when I checked the top, whatever. And I didn't even look at leaderboard because I guess, frankly, I didn't think I would really need to worry about what was leading because I didn't think I'd be shooting that much. And I had a good team event. I shot, I think, 628 around that in team event. And our team had a good team event. We shot just over 3,000. And in singles, we were supposed to start at that, I call it that squad, at 11:30 p.m. start or 11 p.m. start. I don't remember what it was supposed to be, but we ended up not getting on the lanes until past midnight at Vegas time, which is 2 a.m. our normal time back home. And by the time we got done, it was almost 3 a.m. Vegas time, almost 5 a.m. time for us back home. So it was late. We were tired. And then we got done, and that's when the guys in my group were like, you just took the lead in all events. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And they're like, you just took the lead in all events. And then our scorekeeper told us I missed it by 2 pins, which added to the frustration of that last frame, which we could talk about if you want. But and then they came back, they're like, no, you got it by 3 pins. I had surpassed the person who was leading by 3 pins. So that was exciting. And we our group hung around and got bracket money, and Todd and I went and crashed for about 3 hours and then got in our car and drove from Las Vegas to Brentwood, California for one of his PBA 50 stops. So it was a chaotic day, to say the least, but it was very, very cool.
For those folks who may not be as familiar, the standard division came about in 2017. It's now our middle division. And based on the rules and the breakdown now, it's tournament averages of 156 to 175. So that's what your sport average would be, what you average at the Open Championships. Compared to a house shot, which it was previously, it'd be in the 181 to 209, 205 range, somewhere in there. And so it kind of gave new life to some of our bowlers who kind of felt stuck. And a lot often don't know that as you said, that this was even a thing. You hadn't bowled since 2016, back when we just had the 2 divisions. So a little bit different. And then you came out, you bowled very well in the team event, as you said. So great for the confidence. We had a similar conversation with Brian O'Keefe about when Shannon joined their team. And again, the hesitance, to have the wives in town and bowling on the team. And so, of course, you wanted to put on a good show, and you certainly did that. Followed that up in doubles on a new pattern, even with 651. And then typically, and this is where we can talk about it, coming down to the final frames, my guy Daniel Ferris was there to do what we do. And normally we'd have some video of the final frame and the celebration and all the excitement. But it didn't quite end the way that you'd hoped. And so we put that one into the archive somewhere safe. But just walk us through. Again, you didn't know the scores. You hadn't looked. In singles, you ended up with 597. So certainly anytime you're at or around 600, a great performance. 1876 was the final number. But talk about those final couple frames and those moments. And again, as you said, you didn't know, then you thought you had it, then you didn't have it, and then you thought it got away. Tell us about that.
So I had 600 in team event and 600 in doubles, and towards the middle of singles, maybe it was the beginning of the third game, I had 5 frames in a row where I went 4-pin, 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 4-9. And that 4-9 split was my only split I left in the entire tournament for all 9 games. And I had started moving left to try to find some oil, and all of a sudden Todd watched me throw a shot, and he's like, how much have you moved? And it was a lot. It was like 10 boards or something like that by that point. Like, yeah, I think, like I said, it was really late, and I think was starting to tank. And he moved me back to the right, and then I was finishing well, and I got up and I did the math in the 10th frame, and I was like, oh, if I mark, I'll shoot 600, and I'll have had 600 in all 3 sets, which I've never done before. And I threw a pretty good first shot. It was kind of a light shredder 7-pin, and then I got up and I missed it by about 3 feet. So I think I would have hit the 5-pin directly on the face with my spare attempt. And I was just so mad at myself for doing that. I'm like, you're such an idiot. Like, all you needed was a mark, and then even at that, like, so I was frustrated with how I finished. Mm-hmm. I was very happy with my scores, but like, you had such a good tournament, you had to end it on that. So yeah, there might have been a flurry of profanity after I missed that spare. I also had no clue that I was going for the lead in all events, and that I was being videotaped, because I know, like, videotaping the OCs is like not allowed anymore. So I didn't think that was even a possibility. And then they're like, yeah, you took the lead. Sorry, they can't use the video.
And had you known that you were going for the lead and that Daniel was there, and like, would that have kind of made you maybe squeeze a little bit more, or affected you in any way?
Yeah, I think it would have definitely made it worse. Obviously, I did not need to mark in that 10th to take the lead, but I didn't take the lead by much. And there were 2 times, I think, after I bowled, where a bowler came within 3 pins of passing me, and one person, if they'd think they needed 8 to tie and 9 to pass me on their last shot of the tournament, and they threw a 6 count. So it's like, it was nerve-wracking for those 48 days or however long it was that I had to wait when I got done. But no, I definitely would have been much more nervous had I known that I was going for it. And that's probably why nobody in my group said anything to me until I missed the spare in the 10th frame.
Well, from back in our Milwaukee days, the reaction, I guess, to the finish, certainly it was surprising, and Daniel's recollection of the story was pretty amusing as well. So, and then we got to catch up a little bit after the fact, and you ended up winning by 2 pins after it was all said and done. But again, a long couple of weeks to wait that one out, especially knowing how much it would mean, not only just in general, but with your family history at the OC. So we can talk about that a little bit. Your dad, a Hall of Famer and a 5-time Eagle winner in his career, and then of course your Uncle John, something that you got to be a part of, 50 years at the Open Championship. So you're 1876 in 2019, your highest all events total on the tournament lanes, your first appearance since 2016. And again, back to your health issues that kind of slowed things down for you a little bit. But you started back in 2002 and bowled consecutively until 2010. And that was the year that John reached 50 years. So I imagine a special opportunity there. But tell us about the family legacy, what it means to be a part of this event, and for you to grow up in the 80s and 90s and understand and hear about the success, to see the Eagles, to know that this is where the family was going every year. Is that something that you were a part of, or you got to hear about at home? And how much were you looking forward to the actual opportunity to take the lanes with your family?
So When I was a kid, we didn't go with my dad for nationals. He'd go and then we'd hear about how they did. In 1990, would have been spring of 1990, so I would have been 5, is when my dad got inducted into the ABC Hall of Fame. And I do remember that. But obviously I was very young. But so when I was 16, my uncle and my cousins would bowl together on a team. And one of my cousins also has some health problems. He's a type 1 diabetic, and he was having some health issues, and they were worried he wasn't going to be able to bowl. And at Christmas up in Wisconsin, where my uncle and cousins and my aunt would all come to my grandma's house, my cousins told me that if my cousin Jeff couldn't bowl, they wanted me to bowl. And I didn't want anything bad for my cousin, let's make that clear, but the prospect of being able to bowl nationals with them was really exciting for me. And then it turned out he couldn't bowl, but it was very last second. Like, we found out like 2 days before they bowled that he wasn't going to be able to bowl, and my dad couldn't get me out there that fast. He could have for a lot of money, for like $1,400 or something like that. The plane tickets were ridiculous. But so I was very disappointed that I wasn't able to go out there and bowl. And my uncle volunteered to give up his spot on the team the following year and let me bowl with 4 of my cousins. And I told him, no, don't do that. You bowl with your sons. Like, you needed a bowler. So I wanted to fill in, but I don't want to take your spot on your team. And he did it anyway, formed a second team for himself to be on with some other guys. And so for several years going to the Open Championships, my team was my cousins and myself. But the very following year, I was a senior in high school. I was 17, and we were not on the same squad as my dad for team events. Yeah, we were. We were on the same squads. And I was supposed to bowl doubles with a woman in my uncle's group that I didn't know. She was from his area down in the St. Louis area. And she got snowed in Denver. And again, that was Billings, Montana. And we didn't think she was going to get there. And it was like 15 minutes before we were going to start bowling. And my uncle came over to me and he said, "You want to bowl doubles with your daddy?" And I was like, "Are you serious?" And he said, "Yeah." And I was like, "Yeah, I want to bowl doubles with my dad, you know." So that was super special to be able to do that at my first nationals with my dad. And then we bowled decent. We shot 12.24, and it was my first 600 because I didn't shoot that much in team event the day before. So that was really cool. And we got pictures of us throwing a ball side by side on the stub lane. And so that was my start. And then in 2010, I kind of as not side effect, but because of having lupus and taking immunosuppressive medication, I'm more susceptible to getting infections and having them get really bad. In 2010, I actually contracted a flesh-eating bacterial infection in my leg and almost died. That's a really long story. I started out in one hospital and ended up getting transferred to a different one, and they did surgery on me and cut out a large portion of my right calf. And the surgeon told my parents that 70% of young, healthy adults that contract that die, and about half of the 30% that survive end up losing a limb. And she ended by saying, with your daughter's immune system and the fact that for about 48 hours it was kind of not treated properly at that first hospital and allowed to get out of control, that I should have been dead before I got to her. So I woke up and with a wound vacuum on my leg. And for those that don't know what a wound vacuum is, I didn't know what one was either until I had to have one. The hole they cut in my leg was 9.5 centimeters tall from top to bottom, 7.5 centimeters wide, and it was 1.7 centimeters deep. So when you have a hole like that where there's no tissue, you can't just pull the sides of it together and sew it up because you just can't, there's not enough there. So they take black medical sponge and cut it to the size of the wound and pack the wound and then cover it with clear tape and cut a little hole over the sponge, which attaches to a disc that has a hose attached to a vacuum pack that was about the size of my purse. And when they turn that vacuum pack on, it would suck the sponge down into the wound. And basically it cuts healing time by 50 to 70% because it draws blood supply to the surface, and blood carries oxygen, and oxygen is what heals tissue. But I had to wear that wound vacuum 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for 4 months. So you can imagine if I didn't have that, how long I would have been dealing with this wound. But when I bowled the OCs in 2010, I actually had the wound vacuum on. I bowled nationals with the wound vacuum. I took the strap for the vacuum pack and ran it through my belt loops and wore it kind of like a fanny pack, like, you know, some diabetics do that have the insulin pumps. And I did not bowl well, but I was there. It was my uncle's 50th, like you mentioned. And I, you know, talked to my doctors before we went, and I said, listen, I'm going to Reno, whether I bowl or not. And I showed the doctors what bowling entailed in terms of what it looked like. And it was my right leg, not my slide leg. And I had no restrictions with walking or needing crutches or anything at home. So I'm like, bowling's basically just walking. And my doctor said, if you can bowl without taking the wound vacuum off to do it, I don't care if you bowl. So that's what I did. And then I ended up having a skin graft, and I spent a week in the hospital with the skin graft, and basically shouldn't have lived through that, period. And have not only lived through it, but didn't lose my leg. Yeah, I've got scars, but it could be a steel rod on the end of a stump. So the scars don't bother me at all. But that definitely knocked me down for a while.
I mean, these are the stories that we don't necessarily get to hear at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning after, you know, you take the lead. And, you know, those are more just about the scores and the accomplishments. So we appreciate the description and that you're able to tell this. And of course that you're here to tell this to us. And it certainly explains a lot of things when you look at numbers and things. And there's always more to it, right? The meme with the iceberg and just a little bit out of the top of the water and everything underneath. And certainly, you know, when you look at your record and you say, you know, some things happened between 2010 and 2015. Well, we just got a very thorough explanation, and that makes it all that much better. And I imagine more meaningful, the fact that you're now out there, a top competitor, and to be able to go from that story in 2010, of course, a big moment, the 50th year, something that was pretty awesome for us to be a part of as well, and to talk to John the next day and hear about his experience. But to go from there to what you've overcome, to wait out and then get the eventual phone call that you're an Eagle winner, growing up and seeing the Eagles at home from Rich and all the success that he went through. Now that we know that story and how much it meant to be back on the lanes, what does it mean to you to be a champion at the Open Championships? When you got the call, eventually you got the Eagle, it's all sunk in. Describe what the feelings are when you hear that you're a champion.
Still kind of disbelief. I don't think even right now it seems not real to me. The best part about it, honestly, for me was that my dad and I are the first father-daughter ever to both have eagles at the OCs. And I'm going to try really hard not to cry. My dad has had open heart surgery twice for heart bypass. And the first time I was 15 years old, and the second time was in 2008. And the second time he had bypass surgery, so that he had scar tissue on his aorta that had actually adhered to the underside of the breastbone. And when the surgeons cracked his chest to start surgery, they tore his aorta and he bled out on the table. They had to emergency cut both of his groins and put him on a heart-lung monitor, a heart-lung machine. And they came out to speak to us afterwards and told us he was probably never going to wake up. And that if he woke up, he was probably going to have brain damage of some sort, not sure what severity. But they say that you have a 3 to 5 minute window of oxygen deprivation where you can kind of get out of it okay. And beyond that, you start seeing the effects of the oxygen deprivation, and the first organ to be affected by that is the brain. So he was down for 6 minutes. His heart was still beating, but there was literally no blood in his body carrying oxygen around like there should have been. And long story short, they told us he wouldn't be awake for 12 to 24 hours if he woke up. And he woke up in 2, and he was extubated 10 hours after surgery. And now our joke is he doesn't have any more brain damage now than he went in with. But frankly, his surgeon admitted that he had been dragging his feet to come out to the waiting room to speak to us because he didn't think my dad was going to make it. And my dad and I have always been pretty close. So when it was finally official that I won an eagle, for him to be still here and see it, that's what means the most to me out of all of it. It's not about the fact that I did something, it's seeing him be proud of me for it. So sorry.
No, it's perfect. I thought we were going to talk about hammer bowling balls and open championship scores, and this is way more than I could have hoped. I certainly appreciate again the openness in your storytelling as well. That's what it's all about, really. I mean, it means more, as you said, than just some prize money and a trophy. And to see that photo of you guys together and his success and what it means, and even the emotion when you were describing your first Open Championships experience. Now, I was going to ask, what was it about the event that made you want to be a part of it? But clearly, it's probably safe to assume that being able to bowl doubles with your dad is probably one of the reasons why you wanted to keep coming back, and one of the best memories that you have at the OC. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, initially, you mentioned that you really, really wanted to participate. But then something has kept you coming back now for 12 years, and I imagine for another 12 or 24 or 36, just based on just the experiences that you get to have on and off the lanes.
Yeah, so, I think a lot of why I really wanted to bowl it was knowing my dad's success and the success of his group, and not really thinking that I was going to be able to add to that in any way, but just wanted to be a part of it. And I could tell you, when I was younger going to the OCs with my dad, he was still well known enough at that point that, and I say that because he's 73 now, and a lot of the younger generation have never heard of him because he wasn't a pro bowler. He never went pro. But we could walk through the stadium, wherever Nationals was, and he would walk by somebody and they would point and whisper to the person next to him, "That's Rich Wonders. Oh my God, that's Rich Wonders." And it was like being there with a rock star. And they didn't know who I was because I was nobody. So they'd say it where I could hear it, and it always make me smile, and that was always really cool. But yeah, and then the other part is the challenge. It's always a challenging oil pattern, and I wanted to get out there and see what I could do on it. Back when I was 16, 17, 18, I wasn't bowling on tough oil patterns on a regular basis really at all, frankly. So it was like, yeah, let's see what I can do. And I had some good years and I had some bad years, but for us too, it was getting to see my St. Louis family, my Uncle John and my Aunt Deanie and, his boys, my cousins. So there was that added factor as well. But yeah, I was always wanted to participate in that tournament for sure.
Now, outside of the Open Championships, still the Wonders family, a bowling family all the way, from the bowling ball side of things. And you can tell us a little bit more about the hammer side of it. You guys responsible for the hammer brand, as well as bowling center management, proprietor at home in Wisconsin. So you were born into bowling, surrounded by bowling, maybe bowling balls for gifts at the holidays, who knows? But describe that environment. You're growing up in it, having that bowling center where you could hone your skills, and you became a top youth player. But pretty neat legacy as far as the hammer brand, and then onto the Visionary brand as well. So just some very well-known names and products within the industry.
Yeah, so my uncle started hammer, had a partner in the beginning whose name was Earl, but yeah, there he is. So that was in the early 80s, I believe, and he was making bowling balls. And I don't know if I sent you the picture or not, but we have a picture of me throwing my very first bowling ball that I ever had, which was a custom made purple pearl hammer that was only like 5 pounds. And back then they didn't make them that light. They had one specially made for me because I was very small. I think I was 3, maybe 4. But so yeah, I was fortunate to always have amazing equipment to throw, for one. And then my father has owned Hillside Lanes in Racine since 1973. So 46 years it'll be this December. So I grew up there, and I was there every day after school. And so most of the time what I did was bowl, and was able, like you said, great equipment, unlimited free practice, essentially, and a Hall of Famer teaching me. So if I didn't turn out to at least be halfway decent, there'd be a problem probably with that picture. But yeah, I couldn't have asked for a better environment to grow up in terms of becoming a competitive bowler.
Now, you're on the rise as a talented young player, as we said, and at any point, was there aspirations of bowling as a career? I know then, of course, things changed with your illness and kind of changed path a little bit. So tell us about that. Kind of where were you headed, and what change of direction there was for you in trying to just be healthy and stay healthy at that point rather than focus on bowling at all?
So I was actually diagnosed with lupus when I was 11 years old. So I've pretty much been dealing with it as long as I can remember. Now, when I was a teenager, and I look back on this and I don't know how I managed to do it all, but I was a very competitive underhand fast pitch softball player. I was on a traveling tournament team in the summer that went all over the region. And played, and I got my horse when I was 13 and competitive bowling. And today, like, thinking about trying to do all of that, like, at the same time makes me tired just thinking about it. but I did have aspirations at some point of possibly bowling in college. Then it was WIBC Queens tournament was in Wichita in 2003. And my dad took me down there to bowl it. The year before Queens was in Milwaukee, which my dad tossed me in there because it was so close. We didn't have any travel expenses. And he's like, sink or swim, let's see what you do. And in the 10 games, I missed the cut by 13 pins. So he's like, okay, but you proved like you're not totally out of your depth here. You know, you were right there. So he took me down to Wichita the next year, and we talked to Gordy Vatican, who bowled on Team USA with my dad in the early 80s. And financially, it would have been pretty expensive. Back then, Gordy told us that they only we're giving bowlers like $2,000 a year for scholarship money, and it cost like $12,000 a year to go there if you were out of state. But not just the money aspect. My parents were terrified to let me be too far from home, which is where my doctors were. And my freshman year of college, actually, I started at UW Parkside in Kenosha, Wisconsin. I wound up having to withdraw my second semester because I got very sick, spent 6 days in the hospital with lupus stuff. And it kind of cemented in their mind that, yeah, they weren't going to pay for me to go to school far away because I needed to be around my doctors that knew my history and whatnot. So that kind of killed the college bowling prospect. In terms of turning professional, I don't remember ever really feeling like I wanted to do that. You know, my dad had a really successful career as an amateur, and I always wanted to be competitive, and I wanted to go bowl against the top women bowlers. It wasn't that I didn't want to bowl against the competition, but you know, life as a pro bowler is hard. There's not a lot of money out there. It's a lot of traveling. It's a lot of stress, frankly. And it was just never something I thought this is what I wanted to make my living doing. But definitely wanted to try some PWBA tournaments and, you know, dip my toe in that. And actually, it was just this past March, before everything got totally shut down with COVID, I bowled my first PWBA regional that I'd ever bowled and did not make the cut, but I got a check. So I was happy walking out of there with that. But yeah, never really planned or wanted to turn pro as a full-time pro bowler.
Now, over the last 10 years or so, it sounds like obviously things are kind of on the up and up for you now, personally, and things are going well. It sounds like your health is in order. Bowling seems to be doing better. What's ahead for you? What are you working toward at this point now? Obviously, things are a little crazy right now, but you got the great RV, you get to see the country. Yeah. But an opportunity for a new beginning or growing on this beginning, or however you want to describe it. It seems like things are all in the right place and going in the right direction for you. So what's the outlook over the next couple of years for you?
So it's hard to say. So in general, my health is doing pretty well. I am having trouble with my left hip at the moment. My left hip actually needs a hip replacement, and I've known that since I was 29 years old. I had 3 surgeons tell me that the joint is trash, basically. And we did a surgery back then to repair a torn tendon in the joint, and then reshape the bone, which was catching and grinding, which is what tore the joint up. But it's a Band-Aid, and I'll be needing a replacement at some point. And if I can stay healthy enough to exercise enough to keep strong, I don't have a lot of pain with my hip. But when I get a lupus flare and I can't work out like I want to, I lose strength, and then I get a lot of what's called impingement when I bowl, and it causes a great deal of pain. And that started happening to me again around January of this year. And I fought it for a while, but finally went back into physical therapy. I have a phenomenal physical therapist in Wauwatosa, Wisconsin, that always gets me back into shape. I would never have been in good enough shape to bowl as well as I did in the OCs in 2019 if it wasn't for Nate. He's the one that kicked my butt into gear and got me physically fit enough to do it. You know, people that don't bowl don't realize how strong you really need to be if you want to be good and repeat shots. You know, if you don't have good legs under you, good luck. So I'm struggling a bit with my hip right now, but I'm confident that in the short term, we'll be able to get me back better. We're hoping I can get to 40 years old before we replace it, basically. So I got 4 more years to go, if we can make it. But, you know, I was looking forward to the OCs this year. I'm not in the standard division. Will not, whenever I bowl OCs again, be in the standard division. So there's that, you know, after having such a good year, there's that wanting to come back and show like that wasn't a fluke. Like I didn't just have like a flash in the pan great year. Like I can really do this. So I really did work a lot on my game over the winter, bowled more than I have in a very long time. I would say I bowled consistently more than I have for a number of years. So that was kind of a bummer to not get to go back out there in May like we had planned. But yeah, I want to bowl some PWBA regionals, maybe USBC Queens. I'd love to try the Women's US Open, but the format is so long and grueling. I have a lot of concerns about me being able to. Sorry, my cat Dixie's in my face right now. You know, their format is so long and it's so many games for so many days in a row. I worry about my body holding up and being able to do that. But yeah, just some PWBA regionals when I can, and bowling local, you know, all my local stuff that, you know, Wisconsin fortunately has, and in Northern Illinois has a lot of bowling around. There's always something to bowl if you really want to bowl. So, you know, not including COVID season right now, but yeah, that's basically it. I try not to plan too much out ahead because my plans change frequently through no fault of anybody's, but because of my health. And, you know, if I can just fly by the seat of my pants, I don't get as disappointed than if I get, you know, built up to wanting to do something and then turn out to not be able to do it, because that happens more frequently than people think.
Well, now there's certain pressures that come with being a champion at the OC and coming back to defend. And as you said, it's time to jump divisions now and make the move and see if you know, you can prove some more to the guys and to everybody, you know, about your capabilities and how far you've come. Knowing that going in, it certainly would take some of the pressure off as well, I would think, and give you the opportunity to enjoy the experience that comes with being last year's champ. Certainly things that I'm sure you were looking forward to, seeing the banner with your name on it, seeing the gold cup next to your name on the scoreboard, which now you'll get to see in the same venue where you won. All of that has to be pretty special. So I'm sure there was some disappointment with the fact that you have to wait a year for that opportunity, but at the same time, maybe a chance, as you said, to prepare and get healthy and get ready and go out there and really show yourself and everybody else what you're capable of now.
Yeah, and so side story. So we talked about the fact that I got engaged on my birthday. So Todd had made plans to propose to me at nationals when, yeah, so he had been talking to people at USBC, and his plan was after they walked people out for team event, I guess they were going to walk me out at that point and announce me as a winner, I guess. He was going to be the person that walked me out, and then he was going to propose to me in front of everybody. And my parents were going to be there because they wanted to see me get the award also for my title. But so he had that in the works, and then that got pushed back, and then it got pushed back again, and then it got canceled, and he didn't want to wait a whole nother year. So sure. That's why I wound up getting the ring on my birthday. But yeah, there's, you know, the seeing the symbol next to my name, I was looking forward to that, and knowing that every time I go from now on, that's going to be there. That's a cool thing to think about, because that's one of the things I really remember about going with my dad, was seeing all of their eagles up on the scoreboard when they bowled, and just thinking that was the coolest thing, and never thinking, hey, I'm going to have one someday, never thinking that. But so, yeah, it's a bummer. I said if they would figure that the 1 year that the tournament gets canceled is the year that I receive an award for winning an eagle. But it'll be there next year, hopefully.
Now you get to be the reigning champ for a whole nother year, so that's pretty special. I'm sure that came with some attention in Wisconsin as well. Of course, we know how much the event means in that general area, and of course now the Wonders name. What were things like at home once people found out you took the lead, and as you were waiting to find out if it was going to be enough along the way, and then eventually it happened? No doubt the way that they like to party in Wisconsin, there was probably a very nice eagle presentation for you, and something that you got to share with all your friends and family.
Yeah, so when the eagle came, it came to the Beloit Bowling Association, because that's where Todd and I bowl league. And at their Hall of Fame banquet and dinner, they presented it. Well, they were going to present it to me. The association manager put together a really nice presentation with photos and stuff that was up on like a projection screen. And then they had my dad go up there and actually present me the Eagle trophy. So again, that was really special. And that was during that was in the fall, and it was during a time I had 7 weeks where I was bowling King of the Hill tournament in Rockford, Illinois, where I had won it and was going back every Saturday to bowl the crown match every week. So I literally rushed from the bowling alley to that straight to that banquet, and changed clothes, I think, in my car. I'm not sure. But so I look a mess in those pictures because I had been off bowling, but yeah, defending, Todd just said. But yeah, that was really awesome, having my dad hand me the eagle, getting our pictures with both of us holding our eagles. The attention was insane for a while. There was a giant wave of attention, obviously, when I took the lead, because it was like everywhere. And then when it became official, like Bowler's Journal magazine called me, our local, my hometown Racine, the journalist there that covers all the bowling stuff, he called me and did an interview with me. Mark London wrote a very nice, like 3-edition article going over like my health history and kind of stuff we talked about of what I've gone through in the past. And
You have arthritis?
oh yeah, I wasn't even thinking about, Todd just mentioned, I actually had an article done about me in Arthritis Today magazine, because I have lupus, which is very closely related to like rheumatoid arthritis. To this day, I don't know how the editor there found out that this bowler chick from Illinois in Wisconsin has lupus and just won a title, because she said she can't even remember like who told her about the story. But I spent time on the phone with her several times, and a really nice kind of 2-page spread in Arthritis Today magazine last fall. So that was really neat too. But yeah, so it just a lot of attention, most of it very good. You know, but it's funny, it's like no matter what the situation is, there's always people that are going to criticize something, right? And I drew some criticism on social media about why I was in that division to begin with, because there are people that just assumed either because Rich Wonders is my father, or because they've seen me bowl in the past when I'm really healthy and bowling well, that I shouldn't have been in that division. And one specific comment somebody had made, and Todd responded, and he said, you know what, if you had any clue what this girl's gone through to get the word he used was adversity, the adversity she's gone through to get to this, you would just say congratulations. And some person came back and said, what does adversity have to do with bowling? And I'm in the room with Todd when he's reading this, and I'm watching his level of anger rise. And I said, Todd, don't fire back. Just say it has a lot to do with it when it's health related. And so that's all he said. And the person wound up deleting their comment, because I think people just don't think. And frankly, with lupus, even when you're sick, a lot of times you don't look sick, which is a blessing and a curse, because you don't want to look sick, but people then often don't believe that you're sick. So, and when I'm not well enough to bowl, I'm in my house in my bed where people don't see me at all. So they either see me where they think I look 100% healthy, or they don't see me. And there's a disconnect with people, but it's stuff that I've been dealing with forever, so it doesn't really bother me anymore. But I had a lot of my friends and Todd and some of my family get really upset at some of those comments, and I'm like, let people say what they want. I still won an eagle. We all know like my situation. And my dad did the math, because they use your last 27 Open Championship games from the last 10 years is how they get your average. Out of those 27 games, if I had knocked down a total of 22 more pins, I would have been in the top division. Like, that's how close I was to not being in the standard division. So, you know, that just is what it is. And now I'm 9 pins higher average, you know, this coming year versus then. But no, it was mostly great, great response from people very, very kind, and it's humbling to receive such a positive response from so many avenues. I think my favorite, because my father is a man of few words, so I don't question how proud he is, but he doesn't verbalize a whole lot. But I think my favorite congratulations, the day that I got the call that it was official, Todd was bowling a PBA 50 tournament. And when I walked into the bowling alley, Bo Gergen walked over to me and he said, "Welcome to the Eagle's Nest." And gave me the coolest thing ever.
The stories
Fun
today
stuff.
have been quite good. I think that for us, even when it's the middle of the night, I think we need to do a better job of telling these stories and hearing, what's behind the scenes a little bit, looking at the numbers. Sometimes we can look at a record and we can ask and find out, what's the reason for these gaps or the different scores or different things just jump off the page. I don't think we could have seen this conversation coming and some of these things you've overcome, but again, we appreciate sharing all the details today, and you've been a great spokesperson throughout the whole thing as well, not only for the event and the sport and just the different organizations and all the health related things that you've been able to use this for positively, which is awesome. And it's more than just a couple numbers on a scoreboard and a trophy later. And so I think all of that's awesome, and we'll certainly look to continue telling these stories when you return to the Open Championships and as you progress. We've had some great comments in the chat today as well, folks. If you have any questions for Jenny as we get ready to wrap up, drop those into the chat now, and we'll see if we can't get those answered here on the air. I do have a couple final questions for you, and finally, a visitor. We had Mr. Chell was nearby this whole show helping out with some info, and now again, 2 cats and a dog and an RV. There you go, the life.
It's Dixie. Yeah, Todd was insistent that we were not going to get cats because we do a lot of traveling with him, and traveling with the dog is one thing. If it was just one animal, one dog, she traveled really well. But he's like, I'm not traveling in a car with cats. I'm not taking a litter box in the car. And but I grew up with cats, and I was just lost without a cat in the house. And so we wound up getting these 2. They were small kittens when we got them. So I said, yeah, Dixie's right there. There's Lacey.
Oh, and of course the compromise as well. You don't have to take the cats in the car. You compromise and you got a 45-foot RV instead.
Yeah, yeah, right. Yeah, Todd, he says that he did it just because of the cats, but he was thinking about it before we got the cats. I just wanted to make that clear to everybody. He didn't spend that much money on RV because I have 2 cats.
Well, it looks awesome, and then from the photos, and looks like certainly taking advantage of being able to travel the country still, even without the bowling part. I do have a couple final questions for you before we get going.
We got a couple show offs. They're funny. They make us laugh.
Everybody getting along, so that's good news as well.
Yep.
Before we go, I'm curious. Again, you mentioned some key moments in your Open Championships career. You got to bowl doubles with your dad. You got to celebrate 50 with your uncle, and then you got to win the Eagle. Can you pick from those moments or all the moments? Which one's the top one? I don't want you to hurt anybody's feelings, but what stands out to you as your most memorable?
Probably bowling doubles with my dad at my very first one, and another situation where I was really focused because I didn't want to let him down, and I didn't want to let anybody else in his group down. But that was super special for me because that was only 2 years after his first heart bypass surgery, which he had some breathing issues afterwards, but it wasn't like his second one where he literally was like shouldn't be alive. But so that wasn't that long before that, so it felt like an added bonus to my life to get to share that with him.
So I guess the real question too, we saw the photo earlier. Is your dad jealous because your Eagle's bigger than his?
I don't think so. He's got 5, and his are real Eagles, not middle division. His are the real deal. But Yeah, a lot of people have laughed about that with the pictures. They're like, "What's the deal, man? Your trophy's like twice as big as his." It's like, yeah, I guess they they evolved over the years.
So we've
But
upped our trophy game for sure. We know how much that means to everybody. So who knows? They might be even bigger. It'll be twice as big next year when we have the trophy budget from 2020 and 2021. You never know.
yeah, right.
Well, that is all great stuff. Certainly appreciate again the transparency and the details today, and talking about things way beyond the scoreboard. Things that you can't see in a photo or in a video on the lane. So that was awesome. Any final thoughts before we call it a day here?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm still in a bit of disbelief that I won. If I'd have a thought for anybody watching, it wouldn't really be about bowling. It'd be about if you have anything in your life, any reason why you think you can't do something, or statistics that tell you that you can't or aren't likely to do something, forget about it. And just go after what you want, because your mental game and how much heart you have will overcome flaws in your skill so often. And I truly believe that that's been the case for most of my bowling success. It's not because I'm some fantastic bowler with so much skill. It is determination and the sheer will to want to do well that overcomes a person that has a ton of skill but no heart every single time. So, you can't let life circumstances of any kind really get you down to where you stop doing what you love. So if you want to go after something, go after it. And don't let anybody tell you can't do it. If somebody tells you can't do it, tell them sit back and work twice as hard to prove them wrong.
Yeah, terrific sentiment there. A great champion, a great spokesperson. That is great stuff. We look forward to catching up with you on the way to 2021. And of course, once we get to Las Vegas, the scene of the crime, as they say, where it all happened, we get to relive that. So thank you. Congratulations on the engagement. Happy birthday. Safe travels. For everybody tuning in, we certainly appreciate you joining us for this edition of Inside the OC. We hope you learned a lot today from Jenny Wonders, the 2019 Standard All Events champion. 1876 was her number. What a great story. And all the things she's overcome to find success on the Open Championships lanes. Again, anything's possible. Just get out there, overcome what you have to, and we'll be there to tell your story. Coming up next week, we've got the 2019 regular doubles champ, Stephen Fisher and Cody Holbeck, joining us on the show. So looking forward again to catching up with some more of the folks who will be putting those titles on the line next year in Las Vegas. But for now, that is going to do it. And for all the folks behind the scenes, Jason Thomas, Aaron Smith, we appreciate everybody tuning in today. Keep an eye on Bowl TV for all the great other shows coming up over the next couple weeks. Good stuff. The PWBA podcast, the PWBA greatest season, so much more. Again, my name is Matt Canizaro, folks. That's the news for now. We'll see you on the lane.